tremendously successful. How successful was it? When the president signed it into law, if my memory serves correctly, at 7 p.m. on a Thursday, construction on the pipeline halted at 6:45 p.m. on that Thursday. 15 minutes before the sanctions went into law, they ceased building the pipeline. And for a year, the pipeline lay dormant. It lay as a hunk of metal at the bottom of the ocean. We had succeeded. Together, this body had won a bipartisan national security victory for the United States. Then in November of last year, Joe Biden was elected. When Joe Biden was elected, President Biden and his foreign policy team immediately began signaling weakness on Nord Stream 2 to Putin. And that signal was heard. Putin commenced preparatory efforts to begin building the pipeline again within days of the presidential election in November, and Russia began building the pipeline again in January, just days after Joe Biden was sworn in. Existing laws that this body has passed, not once but twice, mandate sanctions to stop the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. Unfortunately, the Biden administration decided to waive those sanctions. Waiving those sanctions, I believe, will prove to be a generational geopolitical mistake. If we continue on the current pace set out by President Biden, Putin will complete the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. If that happens, for decades, Putin and the next dictator in Russia and the next dictator in Russia will get billions of dollars every year from this pipeline. They will use it for military aggression. They will use it for spying on America. They will use it for attacking their enemies. Not only that, Europe will be captive to Russian natural gas. It will be subject to energy blackmail. We don't have to hypothesize this because Putin's demonstrated his willingness to use energy blackmail on Europe going forward. This undermines the interest of Europe. It undermines the interest of America. And by the way, it also hurts jobs in the United States of America. I've made clear to every State Department official, to every State Department nominee, that I will place holds on these nominees unless and until the Biden administration follows the law and stops this pipeline, imposes the sanctions. As the senator from New Jersey knows well, and he and I work together closely on these sanctions legislation that the Biden administration is refusing to follow, I have been negotiating with the Biden administration in good faith for months, laying out a path to move these nominees forward. But unfortunately, to date, President Biden has insisted on giving a multi-billion-dollar gift to Joe Biden, benefiting Russia, hurting America, and hurting our national security interests. That being said, there is a path where I would readily lift these holds. And it is a path I am in a moment going to propound a unanimous consent resolution, a unanimous consent request to take up and pass legislation that I've introduced that would impose the sanctions that are already required by law, but the Biden administration refuses to follow. This legislation is legislation that both of the Democratic members of the Foreign Relations Committee have voted for substantially similar legislation in the past. If this legislation passes the Senate, if it passes the House and is signed by the President, the day it is signed by the President, I will lift these holds. But given that the President and White House have indicated they intend to defy the law, I'm not going to lift the holds unless and until they relent in their effort to give this gift to Vladimir Putin. Accordingly, I ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to the immediate consideration of a bill at the desk that would require the imposition of sanctions with respect to Nord Stream 2. I ask unanimous consent that the bill be considered read a third time and passed, and that the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table.
Mr. President.
Is there objection?
Mr. President, reserving the right to object, and I'll be brief for the sake of everybody here. There's a lot more to be said, but look, first of all, this legislation was just introduced today, has not been brought before the committee. It's not had a full vetting, and it's not, I think, quite fair to say that it's exactly the same. It isn't. I was just looking through it. Secondly, I know that the senator believes that he can dictate to the President of the United States, who's duly elected by the American people, what the foreign policy should be. I believe we should have a role in foreign policy. I share that with the senator. But you can't say if it passes the Senate, if it passes the House, signed by the President, then I will release my hope. I mean, I guess that would be nice if the senator could accomplish it for his goals, but it's not the way the system ultimately works. And I would just say President Trump, for the longest period of time, did not issue the sanctions that were necessary because he was so cozy with Vladimir Putin. And the result was that the pipeline was almost finished by the time President Biden came to office. Had he done what the senator wishes, we wouldn't be in this position today. So for all of those reasons, I object to the senator's unanimous consent request.
Objection is heard. Is there objection to the request from the senator from New Jersey?
Reserving the right to object, I will respond briefly to the senator from New Jersey. The talking point from the Biden administration as to why they have given this gift to Vladimir Putin is they say the pipeline is almost complete. It is over 90% complete. The problem with that argument is it's demonstrably false because it was equally true in December of 2019. In December of 2019, the pipeline was over 90% true. And indeed, at that time, there was a massive Russian disinformation campaign throughout Europe where the Russian government was putting out, these sanctions will never pass, and if they pass, they will never work. Why? Because the pipeline is over 90% complete. Well, Mr. President, a pipeline that is 90% complete